Okay, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. This particular review has been a long time coming. These watches are from Fair Universal, and they are proudly combining British design and Swiss quality. They were launched back in 2015, and they are an independent British watch company driven by a horological passion for detail, design, and most importantly, difference. It's not enough to just make high quality luxury watches. They want to bring something unique to the world of horology. As a result, each of their watches offer a fresh take on a classic watch genre, and all are actually built for adventure and designed to be enjoyed for a lifetime. These watches would fall under the everyday watch category. Some key common characteristics and design language. You're looking for something that you can wear every day. Of course, you want to find that versatile blend of both sporty and dressy attributes. Now, these are both from their three-hand collection, and you're going to see the 36mm Discovery Black Velvet versus the 40mm Resolute 2. Now, these are two of their most popular models, and at the time of filming this, their 40mm is actually sold out, but will be restocked here in the fall. And essentially, these watches are the epitome of what Fair stands for. These take classic design elements and bring them up to date with bold colors and modern manufacturing techniques. These both go for the same price, which is going to be $9.95 on strap, or you can add for $185 for the steel bracelet, adding the total to $11.80. Now, these review samples were kindly lent in by the Fair team for the purposes of this review, but of course, all of my thoughts and comments are my own, and the brands never get any level of editorial preview. So with all that said, let's go ahead and zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, so a few things to get out of the way when it comes to the dimensions on these two pieces. Although this one is marketed as a 40mm, it's actually 38mm in diameter. Now, when it comes to the thickness, my personal calipers actually have the 36mm being slightly thicker at 11.2 versus 11.1 millimeters on the 39.5. And that, of course, is including those crystals. Now, in terms of the lug to lug, here's where you're going to get a pretty drastic difference. Check that out. Let me get them even there. And you know what? Visually, it might not look that drastic, but here you're going to have a 41.9, so just under 42mm lug to lug, versus here a little bit more standard, still quite short lug to lug at 45.7. These are both going to be made out of stainless steel, and they're going to have brushed and polished accents. You're also going to get boxed sapphires with an inner AR coating on each of these, and a very thin fixed bezel. So these are going to have a large expansive dials, which is one of the things that kind of gave me hope that this 36mm, that combined with the fact that it has a 20mm lug, might be the 36mm that sways me to kind of go away from my typical sweet spot of about 38 to 38.5. This being a 39.5, slightly larger, but I will say in person, the wear profiles are still quite balanced, and I think depending on the situation, you may prefer one over the other, even apart from whatever your wrist size dictates, just because the scale on these definitely comes into play, as well as the proportions, right? Like, thankfully, they both have 20mm lugs, which is great, so these bracelets flow well, but you can see, of course, one has a bit more of a larger space, although I will say that the dial is, more, I'd say, proportional there in terms of taking up that space and kind of centering your vision, versus here, very nice and still well balanced, but there's a little bit more open space, so the smaller dial doesn't feel overcrowded. So very, very nice. You're also going to get across both of these very cool push-pull crowns that do have those bronze inserts for the signed crown. So they do have the nice Fair logo, which is repeated on the dial as well on the seconds hand. Now, the movement inside, guys, beautiful movement, and it's one that's really starting to take off. Let's get the camera to focus here. Ooh, if I can get it to. There we go. There we go. All right, a little reflective, but you're going to see the LJP or Le Jeu Perret G101 in the Sillage finishing there. So very, very nice. It has a 68-hour power reserve, so nice extended power reserve, but not at the cost of the beat rate. You're still going to get 4 hertz in terms of that sweep, or 28,800 vibrations per hour. So very, very nice. Same movement here on the larger variation as well. If I can have it not hit the camera lens hood there, but very, very nice movement. Some people kind of consider this the Swiss version of the Miyota 9000 series, because LJP is owned by the Citizen Group, but of course these are Swiss made movements. They do share a bit of architecture, they share a bit of thinness, they share even a bit of rotor whir, if you can hear it. Does it bother me? No, it doesn't bother me on a Miyota, and it doesn't bother me on a G101 movement either. So very, very nice from that perspective in terms of the proportions, the designs. This is really what they're known for. They both have display case backs. Now, some of the differences in the dials, guys, you're going to have a gloss white dial versus a matte black dial. So, definitely another story of opposites. They both do have applied indices, which is fantastic. Of course, one is going to be more full numerals, where the other is more of kind of that Explorer-esque 12369 layout. Now, you're going to have also a difference in painted syringe hands versus polished syringe hands. The seconds hands are both painted very nicely in terms of contrast of the orange popping on white, but here it's more the black to blend. And then the cool thing is when you look at the tip there on the seconds hand, which is actually nicely curved for ultimate accuracy, it's cool that I feel like it almost gives it kind of a floating effect, because you're seeing the black against the black and it's not standing out. And I think because of how small the dial is, a white seconds hand probably would have felt a bit heavy handed. So nicely refined from that perspective. Both of these are going to be using Ice Blue X1 Super Luminova. And then when we get into the water resistance, they both have 50 meters or 5 atmospheres. Also, again, sharing that 20 millimeter lug width. But one thing that's different is this is actually an older variation, because this is an older watch. This one actually has a pin and collar construction, whereas here you're going to see screw pin construction. Now, I'm sure that means that whenever these come back into stock, they're probably going to have the screw pin construction. But let me know down in the comments. Of course, this is a loaner model, so this bracelet's probably been around quite a while. Now, 20 millimeter end links is great. You're also going to get quick release spring bars here built in, as you guys can see. So that's going to make that really easy for changeover. Also, female end links, so the drape on here is fantastic. You can see nothing to jot out or overhang from the lugs. You're getting this 3-link bracelet with a mild excuse me, and thank you for the inevitable gesundheits and blessings coming to the comment section. You're getting a mild taper from 20 millimeters down to 18 millimeters to this push button butterfly clasp, which is actually nicely signed again with the Fair Universal A, and that's going to be the story on both of these models. So they do look quite nice. I think they both look fantastic, honestly. I mean, Fair's known for the design and really offering you something different. I mean, how many people have tried to do an Explorer-esque watch and just end up feeling very vanilla? I like here that this still feels quite dynamic, even in just the color play and the day lume effect, or that really deep matte black, almost Vanta black like dial, or of course I do love a classic white dial with a pop of orange. The way that they did the lume on here is very cool, so you can see it's dark, but essentially the surrounds are lume, so it almost has this kind of art deco street sign effect, which is really, really cool. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and get these on the wrist and see how they wear. Okay guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, this wears really, really well. Of course, I do have a slightly larger than average wrist, but I will say that it is quite a round and tall wrist, so it's not like it's super wide, flat, and accommodating. For instance, if you get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens here, you're going to get a fair amount of perspective distortion. It's going to make the watch seem much larger than it actually is. So I like to keep my wrist nice and low, but before we tighten the frame up, let's take a look at this. Now, at this space, it looks quite small. And that also has to do with the fact that I'm wearing short sleeves. Now, if I had a long sleeve and this was peeking out from underneath the cuff, I think it would look pretty perfect. Of course, if I get my wrist too close to the camera there, you can see now you're getting that distortion. All of a sudden, some of you are saying that watch fits you perfectly, Mark. What are you complaining about? Again, that's the distortion, guys, perspective distortion. So this is going to look great on Instagram on a lot of wrists because of that perspective distortion. But if I leave my wrist nice and low and then just tighten up the frame here, guys, you're going to get still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio as to how this may lay on your own wrist. And of course, coming from a floating wrist versus, a human body with the full context of the human form, some of you are going to be shouting at the screen saying that is a perfect fit. Again, for me, in a short sleeve attire, I do feel this is slightly small, unfortunately. Whereas here, I feel like it is slightly large, but I would err on the slightly large, especially for a short sleeve situation. And I think this is still a great looking watch. And I mean, this thing is nice. Again, if they made like a 38 and a half, it would probably be the ultimate sweet spot for me. But I'll say both of these watches are great. The nice thing with these sizes is it kind of gives you an excuse to own both. You could have this one and wear it more as the dressy piece, whereas here you could wear this as more of your kind of everyday wear, everyday adventure vibe. But look at the profile on that case on the Sapphire. Very nice. Great drape again. And very, very thin. Check it out. If I get it to focus there. Look at how thin that is. So very, very cool. I'm digging both of these. But with that said, let's actually get these off the wrist, set up for some Lume shots, the light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Ha ha! Look at that Lume, extremely cool on that white dial. Maybe one of the best kind of everyday dressy type of watch Lume application I've ever seen. It is just fantastic. I mean, they did it right and it's different and I love it. I absolutely adore it. It stands out, it pops, but at the same time, it's still relatively sedate in the fact that it is just full numerals. One thing I like to work in is always a bit of a low light transition because you're always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. Guys, this X1 grade is fantastic. My goodness. Check that out, of course. With the transitional lighting, it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like when they're not in the most optimal spaces. But you can see here transitionally very, very legible and very handsome, right? Fully lit, basically, and then getting down, you just see that Lume come to life. So in terms of Lume application, I'm definitely going to give the edge to the 39 and a half. Whereas, of course, I think the overall simplicity, the thematic kind of vibe of being just about a perfect Rolex Explorer alternative, I mean, they just do it right. My goodness. But this Lume is just so unique, so cool. And again, I can think of a bunch of different kind of Explorer-esque great micro brand models out there, but when it comes to something like this, there's just something really special about it, and I absolutely dig it. So we'll get into some closing thoughts now, guys. On the wrist, personally, I do prefer the 39.5 over the 36 millimeter, but I could see the 36 millimeter being more wearable under a long sleeve cuff. For me, a 38 millimeter would likely hit the ultimate sweet spot, but I highly doubt they would ever come out with that. But fair, if you're listening, let's do it. Release the 38 millimeter, and everyone like me who's been stuck in between these two size ranges will finally have a chance to pull the trigger. Now, in terms of model variants, guys, check the site links for current options and availability. But in terms of comparable models, I think this compares really well against more expensive yet similarly spec'd models like the Fears Brunswick. But this still may feel a bit pricey compared to other more value-focused pieces within that kind of independent micro brand realm. Sometimes feeling a little bit more robust, a little bit more sporty can make you feel like the extra money is worth it. In this case, these watches are built really well, but they're not overbuilt. I wouldn't consider them that. So that might be something that might hang you up. But if you're looking for something you can wear more as a casual everyday piece, I think these are two fantastic options. So bottom line for me, guys, I've wanted to check out this brand for more in depth anyway, for ages. So I'm really happy I was able to spend some quality time with these more quintessential fair models. I mean, this is what I think of when I think of this brand. And I will say I do think of this brand. I've been shooting them emails back and forth for years. So big shout out to Fair for coming through and supporting the channel and letting me spend some time with these two outstanding timepieces. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are you leaning more towards the 36 or the 39.5? And yeah, if you liked the video, please hit like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.